It is the final day of the NBA season before the All-Star break, so you need to make sure you're not rostering a dude who's starting vacation early. Like Jesse Cofield is always on vacation, but these three guys are not. DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne, Matt Meiselman, and Nick Fryer. Before we price check, though, dudes, let's talk about Anthony Davis, like Mr. Glass here. The Lakers' big man, he left last night's win over Utah after suffering an ankle injury, x-rays negative, so that's good. So just a bad sprain we're talking about. Nothing new. AD has been in and out of the lineup so much during his LA career, but if he misses a significant amount of time, what impact do you think this will have from a DFS or sportsbook perspective with this Lakers team that's really struggling to put it together down the stretch, Garion?
Yeah. Well, they don't have that much power forward depth, if we're just being honest. This will probably just result in the Lakers' plan A for any contingency, which is make LeBron do it. And it's probably what's going to happen. LeBron's going to see his usage go up. I don't know if we could really see him play any more minutes than he's currently playing, but the fear here would be that this leads to essentially the exact scenario we saw play out the last time Anthony Davis missed an extended period of time for the Lakers, which is it forces LeBron to do more and then LeBron gets hurt. It's sort of a perpetuating cycle. This is just going to mean more on the plate of LeBron James and probably Russell Westbrook, for as much as Frank Vogel might not want that to happen. I mean, that's sort of what happens in these three-star systems. If you lose one star, the other two stars have to take on more.
All right, Nick, they're currently the 9 seed in the Western Conference. Like if AD misses a little bit of time or continues going in and out of the lineup, LeBron, we know how banged up he's been. He says, I can't put this team on my shoulders by myself, even though he built this team. Could there be a threat? How big of a threat is it that they're going to miss the playoffs?
I think it's a pretty sizable threat, even if AD was in the lineup, because look at where they are in the standings right now, Emerson. I don't have any confidence in this Lakers team, and I'd be lying if I was saying I'm not enjoying it a little bit. But if we look at it from a DFS side, Garen hit on it a little bit. LeBron becomes every single night one of the best high-priced options every single night. I'm not going and backing him this season, but this now when AD's not in, he was outstanding. And then if you look at it from a sportsbook side too, his triple doubles are going to be in play quite a bit more too. He had a few when Anthony Davis was out, so I'd be looking into those on a night-to-night basis. Obviously, he's not going to do it every single night, but still something to take a look at. And if not, you can look at his points plus assists and plus rebounds totals too. And Russell Westbrook too, I know Gary hit on a little bit. He becomes more viable. I still don't like him a whole lot more. There is value to be had on this team, but I think the biggest thing is LeBron is going to become one of the better high-priced options on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, he's going to have to be moved to the 5 now once again, which he's been pretty good at in Davis's absence, Matt. Also, I'm looking at the Tinseltown franchise here, one of the toughest schedules left in the NBA. Lakers 10-11 without Davis this season, still 4 games under 500 right now.
Yeah, so I agree with these guys in terms of DFS, where the impact is really just LeBron. Like, Dwight Howard's not going to play enough where we're going to be talking about him every day or anything like that. This is really more about LeBron than anything. From a sportsbook perspective, I actually don't know that if we're talking about futures odds, that this is going to matter that much. If LeBron gets hurt too, having to take on a larger load, then yes, then that will obviously matter. But my assumption has been the Lakers are going to be the 9 or the 10 seed regardless. If they win 32 games or 37 games or maybe even 39 games, like anywhere in that range, that most likely winds up as them being in the bottom half of the play-in. So we could get the disaster scenario where LeBron gets hurt too and the Lakers miss the play-in entirely, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think without Davis, the Lakers are going to be a slightly below 500 team going forward. They're going to wind up as the 9 or the 10 seed, and I think that's where they were going to end up anyway. So as long as LeBron can stay healthy and Davis can come back for the playoffs, I think the Lakers still should be okay with a chance to win 2 play-in games and get into the real playoffs.
All right, well, let's get to tonight here, guys, in price check. Again, final day before the All-Star break. Who's your guy above 10K this evening, Nick?
So normally I'm a Joel Embiid guy. I know he had a rough game last time out. But I'm not going to go with Joel Embiid again in this one. Giannis Antetokounmpo is the guy tonight for me. I know we have Luka Doncic as an option as well too. But Giannis, he's coming off with the Bucks have played. This is their 3rd game in 4 days, but Giannis did have a rest day. Philly's coming off that brutal game, and I know you might think, Philly's going to bounce back. There's no way they can do what they did last time against the Celtics. I do think to some extent it won't be that bad necessarily, but I think what we've seen since they've kind of moved on from Seth Curry and Andre Drummond too They just don't have that offensive firepower right now until James Harden gets back in the mix. And if you look historically at how Giannis has done against Embiid, Giannis has done pretty well against Joel Embiid. He hasn't really had many issues in terms of scoring, in terms of rebounding. Joel Embiid still done fine, but when we're looking at it from a DFS perspective, he's not holding up, the salary that he has tonight. And also Giannis, forward eligibility, that is important because there are a few centers that I like tonight too that I think are going to provide some good value.
All right, Gare Bear, who is your guy over 10K?
Gotta agree with Nick. I think it's Giannis tonight among the studs. I know this is kind of funny to say on the heels of getting absolutely demolished by the Celtics, but you look at this game on paper and think this is going to be a relatively neutral game script. This should be one of those contests where Giannis is forced to play more minutes than he, would normally have to do on your average Thursday night. And the last 4 times that Giannis has played at least 34 minutes in a game, he's averaging 74.1 DraftKings points per game, which makes a lot of sense when you consider that across his last 11 games in general, he's averaging 1.8 DraftKings points per minute. So if you're going to get Giannis towards his 90th, 95th percentile in terms of minutes played volume, you just have to play him on those slates.
All right, Matty, you have just 3 guys to choose from here. So which one you going with? You got Luka, you got Giannis, you got Joel.
Yeah, I agree with these guys on Giannis over Embiid. And I think the reason for that, a lot of it for me is just the position where at center, I think there are going to be a lot of value plays to look at, especially if Christian Wood doesn't play tonight. We have some cheaper Rockets, but I think the cheaper Clippers too. So I kind of want to save the center slot with Embiid. And Giannis looks good to me. Part of also what's happening with the Bucks is they just don't have a lot of depth right now. They traded away a couple of players. They have some injuries to their supporting cast. And Giannis is just I think he's more well rested than these other players. Giannis got a day off last week, and he looked really good coming back against Indiana. I think Embiid might be a little more tired. Luka's had to do a lot more with Porzingis out of the lineup. And even though the Mavericks beat the Heat on the road, Luka was not actually that great in that game. It was mostly the Mavericks defense that won that for them. So I think Giannis just looks fresher right now. Truthfully, though, you can't really go wrong with any of these guys. They're all just legitimate fantasy studs any night. But I'm leaning Giannis over the other 2.
All right, in the 8K or 9K range, who's in a good spot to deliver the goods here, Gary? And once again, a fantastic article available here on DK Nation with so many options to choose from. You are literally putting this company on your shoulders like boulders and helping us produce cash.
It means a lot to me. If I could blush on cue, I would, buddy. Yeah, this is an interesting price range. I think there's a lot of guys who are pretty viable, but the one who sticks out, and this is a little bit dependent on injury news, but maybe not as much as some people might think, is Bam Adebayo. You just look at Bam, he's underpriced. He's only $8,400. He's been absolutely phenomenal in the month of February as he's kind of gotten his bearings back from that extended injury absence. He's averaging about 23 and 11 across his first 8 games in the month. And his usage rate, which, for context, was at 22.2% in January, is up at 29.5% in February. And I think that's kind of like the perfect storm of not only Bam being back and being in a groove, but Kyle Lowry being back on the court and knowing how to feed someone like Bam Adebayo. So you look at Bam, there's no Tyler Hero in this game. There's a reasonable chance that there's no Jimmy Butler in this game. It's an up-tempo matchup against the Hornets. Charlotte has given up the 4th most DraftKings points per game to opposing centers. I still like Bam even if Jimmy plays, but if Jimmy doesn't, this is like a dream scenario for Bam.
Yeah, Bam, according to you, been in a serious groove to begin February. Matt, what do you want to do in this price range?
Yeah, the injuries are going to make this tough. So my hunch is that Butler plays, but if Butler doesn't play, and he did play with a questionable tag last game, but if he doesn't play, then Bam would be my choice. But if Christian Wood plays, this is another uncertain guy who missed last night's game with an illness. Or I think it might have been a migraine, but he may be back if that's just a one-day thing. Christian Wood's $8,100 for a matchup against the Clippers. And yes, this would be a tough thing for the Rockets on a back-to-back after a tough game against Phoenix last night. But Christian Wood didn't play in that game. So it's possible that we see Wood get more minutes than normal because the rest of the players who were filling in for him are tired. The same could be true for Kevin Porter Jr. I think the Rockets tend to just want to play all of their guys roughly 24 to 27 minutes, just give everyone a chance. But it was a hard game for them last night in Phoenix. They played right up into the end, no garbage time. It was actually a close game. So if Christian Wood's out there, I think there's more upside for him than people realize.
Alrighty, Nick, what do you think? Who do you want to roster?
Yeah, I'm in lockstep with the guys on Bam Adebayo on this one. He was the guy right away. I'm looking at 8.4K going up against the Hornets. Pace up spot anytime going up against the Hornets. I'm a broken record at this point. And they struggle against opposing big men, as Garion highlighted. And all around, defensive rating, not strong in that category either. Bam. So I'm with Garion where if Jimmy Butler does play, I still like Bam Adebayo in this situation. And if you're looking for another play in this range on the other side of the matchup, Terry Rozier is a guy I like a lot too tonight. I think he's at 8.2K. I know that the Heat are good against opposing point guards, but when it comes to shooting guards, not necessarily as much. And with Gordon Hayward out, Terry Rozier has the second highest usage rate on the team, second highest field goals per minute on the team as well. All just trailing ball in those categories. So I like him a lot in this one as well.
Gentlemen, we're nearing the price range of the working man, around 6K or 7K. Who you got, Matt?
So I think this player is going to be pretty popular, but I kind of just have to go with him anyway. Reggie Jackson, to me, is way underpriced right now. Norman Powell being out, I think, has just added some extra usage for him. But for whatever reason, Jackson has gotten some big minutes lately. Like in the past, we've had injuries where Eric Bledsoe was out, let's say, who's not playing anymore for the Clippers, and Powell, who's out now. They traded some players away. But I think the Clippers are just intent on playing Jackson a ton of minutes, and he's played really well. So the only way that doesn't happen tonight, I think, is if we get a blowout. But even so, Jackson is probably the guy who's going to lead that team to the blowout and should have a big enough fantasy game. So 6,800 might just be a price that we don't see for Reggie Jackson after the All-Star break. This could be a player who's 7,500 or more on just about any game. And this is a matchup with the Houston Rockets, who are one of the worst defensive teams in the league. So until Paul George comes back, I think this is just way too low for Reggie Jackson in general.
All right, Nick, who's your dude in this price range?
We talked about centers, right? And in this price range, Andre Drummond, 6K going up against the Wizards. I like him a lot. As long as KD and Kyrie aren't on the floor, which that's going to be the case because Kyrie, this game is being played in Brooklyn, so he cannot play. I like Andre Drummond for the time being. We'll see what it looks like when those guys come back, but for now, we're in a good spot, especially against the Wizards, who don't do well against opposing bigs. And look no further than what happened last night. Tristan Thompson just went off for 17 points in 21 minutes against the Wizards, and it seemed like all their bigs had pretty good rebounding numbers as well, the Pacers, that is. And then when you look at the over, too, in games when the Wizards are on the second leg of a back-to-back, the over is 6-1, and the Wizards have the 8th worst defensive rating in the league this season.
All right, Garion.
Yeah, I've just got to echo what Matt was talking about. I mean, Reggie's just too cheap tonight. 6,800 for someone who across the last 3 games he's played, which is the same amount of time that Norman Powell has been out for the Clippers, he's averaging 38.1 minutes per game and has a team-high 27.6% usage rate. I mean, we all know that Houston is the dream of all dream matchups for DFS this season. If you're going to give me Reggie at, even like 34 to 38 minutes, even if he hits the low end of that spectrum, I just don't see how he doesn't bring back value tonight.
Now to the peasants. Less than $6,000. Nick, have at it.
You're on fire today, Emerson, I got to say. But Terrence Mann is one of my guys that I like a lot in this peasant range, I guess how we're putting it right now, going up against the Rockets. I know he just had an awful game, still got plenty of minutes in that one, but he's in a pace-up spot against the Rockets. I'm not assuming that this trend is going to continue. Of course, the Rockets have the worst defensive rating in the league, and they're not good against opposing wings either. The guys have talked about the Rockets, too, and how there's value if Christian Wood, Kevin Porter Jr., if they don't play tonight, obviously didn't play last game. Dennis Schroeder, I like him a lot now, and obviously he popped off last game. And then Sengun at 4.5K, I like him in that spot as well.
Help me, I'm poor, Garion.
Me too. I think that this is basically one of those spots where just pick whoever you want or whoever fits from this Clippers-Rockets game. I mean, it's the highest total game on the slate. We still have to wait out just whether or not Christian Wood and Kevin Porter Jr. are going to be available for this contest. I mean, if Porter Jr. isn't playing, I don't know if they're going to let Eric Gordon play 38 minutes back-to-back nights heading into the All-Star break, but they didn't trade him, so I guess they don't care about his well-being. So they might just do that again. He's only $3,800, took 24 shots last night. Dennis Schroeder also played 38 minutes last night as, the only point guard remaining on this team's roster. Alperen Sengun, as Nick was talking about. Like, there's a bunch of different ways to go here, and the Clippers also are just a team like Nick Batum, Terrence Mann. Like, there's just a bunch of directions you can go here in this particular contest where value just seems like it's apparent everywhere.
Alrighty, Maddie, help me out, please.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a team tonight. Well, this is a hunch that I'm just kind of making up on the fly, but I think there's some logic to it. I think the Wizards could end up just having no one expensive on their team playing tonight. This is the fourth game in 6 nights, and Kyle Kuzma has been playing massive minutes. Last night he shot 9 for 27. There is no sign that he's on the injury report, but I'm keeping an eye on him. It feels like a day on the schedule where teams are more likely to just rest someone, just say, let's get to the All-Star break. We don't want to get guys hurt, especially on a back-to-back. I'm pretty sure it's true that last year, the first game that Steph Curry and Draymond Green rested the entire season was the day before the All-Star break on a back-to-back. This is just kind of something we have to look for. So with the Wizards, Denny Avdia, I think, would be one of the main guys, Corey Kispert. And then on Houston, I don't think Dennis Schroeder's playing. I don't think Eric Gordon's playing. I think KPJ may get back out there and play. So I'm not as excited about that situation. We just have to monitor it. But with the Wizards, I think they kind of just let the young guys go tonight, and I could see Kuzma sitting this one out just because of the back-to-back, and just let him get to the All-Star break and be healthy coming back for the second half.